My name's Dan Hon, and I am CEO and co-founder of Six to Start with my brother Adrian. We're a kind of a game startup based out of London in the UK, and what we've worked out that we do is we invent and we build new kinds of entertainment. So what I've been telling people is that right now, not just the web, but with media in general, now that we have the internet and now that we're starting to get ubiquitous connectivity, it feels like, and a number of other people have said this, what we're seeing on the web in particular is just an imitation of other media forms. So we have radio on the web, we have TV on the web, we have movies on the web, and we have conventional video games on the web, but we don't really have anything that's created for the web yet. So an analogy would be like when television first appeared on the scene. And the first thing that we did, because it was all we knew how, was to film theatre plays. And then, 70 years later, 80 years later, we finally really understand what the medium television can do. And I think what we're seeing, with sites like Last.fm, with Pandora, with YouTube, with Hulu, is we're seeing the first steps where we look at the media that we already have. So not just television, radio, movies, and video games. So all of that. We take that and we transplant it onto a new medium, and we're not necessarily creating anything natively for that medium.
How do you do that?
How do we do that? Well, we do it through a lot of experimentation. We have to try new things, there's only certain space for that, and but that's one of the things that we did with our project with Penguin last year called We Tell Stories. So what we were doing with Penguin was an experiment in digital literature, where what we wanted to do was see if we could genuinely write fiction from a mainstream, old school publisher that would be native to the web. So normally, when publishers talk about electronic publishing, or they talk about transferring or moving into the internet age, what they commonly mean is taking the manuscript of a book, like a Word document, turning it into a PDF or turning it into a format that can be used on a Kindle. So you're starting off by writing a book, and then you're translating it into other formats. And what we wanted to do with what we did with Penguin was see if we could create something for the web first. So fiction or literature that could not exist without the internet. That would be very, very different if you tried to turn it into print form.
And could you give me an example of what kind of form did
Yeah.
you take?
So the way that we did it was we tried 6 different experiments. So we had 6 different ways of telling stories that we wanted to experiment with. And with Penguin, we selected 6 stories from their classics archive. One of the main benefits being that on the one hand, because they're in the classics archive, they're old, which means that they're out of copyright and we can mess with the text a little. The other thing is that those classic books, they have fairly static sales. So if we can influence the sales, then we knew that we were able to influence it, we knew that we could do a content play. And then with those interaction methods and those 6 stories, we then chose 6 authors. And the standout success was a retelling of the John Buchan thriller, The 39 Steps, which we retold in Google Maps. So we took the normal Google Maps interface that everyone knows and loves. You type in pizza and it shows you all the pizza takeout places around you and puts all the little pins on the map. And we took that interface and we turned it into a storytelling interface. So you can follow this guy around, and then the line moves just like it does in Indiana Jones. And you can scroll in, you can zoom in, zoom out. And there's a part of the story where he flies from London up to Edinburgh. And all the time he's talking to you in these speech bubbles that come out from those Google Maps markers.
And it worked real well, I think.
It worked incredibly well. To put it into context, the chap who wrote the story for us, or with us, is a guy called Charles Cumming. And he writes thrillers for Penguin, and he's written 3 so far, and they sell quite well. They sell in the 40,000 copy range, right? What we saw with the story that he did for us, the Google Maps story, the 21 Steps, is that within about 8 weeks we had 250,000 people read it. And that's with no above-the-line marketing, and that's just completely organic, word of mouth. We sent an email out to around 8 or 9 blogs.
And that's it.
And we just watched it grow from there.
And you,
yeah.
you stopped there. Your place.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And you know, I've just come up from Austin, from South by Southwest, where the site won an award in the experimental category, and what we didn't expect and what we had no idea was going to happen was we also won Best of Show.
That's not so bad.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting point because you think it's fairly simple, you know.
It's a pretty simple it's a very simple concept actually, but what it requires is you know, looking at media in a different way and not thinking I want to create a book or a TV show or a video game. What my brother and I and our game design team at the company do and are really interested in is how can we tell stories and how can we make games in different ways now that we have, you know, now that we can use the whole world as a canvas.
And how do you monetize this? Because it's your client, right?
Right.
It's Penguin.
Right. Now that is the multi-million-dollar question, right? And I would be lying if I said I knew.
Okay.
I don't think YouTube knows how they're going to monetize their content. I think Hulu knows how they're monetizing their content, but they're definitely not making very much money, right, compared to TV. We don't know. The business models aren't there yet, and we will only know if we experiment. And there are lots and lots of different business models that we have ideas about that we're going to be trying. For Penguin in particular, this was an experiment for them. My understanding is that it has demonstrated to Penguin that there is an audience for this type of content, and that now they are going ahead with projects that will attempt to monetize that as well. I mean, what it's shown to Penguin is that there is now definitely demand for that kind of storytelling. And there are only, you know, people said that you couldn't charge for music on the internet until iTunes came along, right? So, you know, we're gonna give it our best shot.
And I'm curious, how many people actually work on this Penguin project?
So on that particular Penguin project, my brother Adrian, he was the lead creative. He worked with Claire Bateman, who was the junior game designer there. James Wallace, who was at our company, he also worked on some of the game design. We had 6 authors. We had 1 back-end developer who wrote all the code that runs on the server, Ben Burry. Andrew Hayward is the guy who makes everything you can see on the screen. He's absolutely fantastic. You know, he's the guy who can make all the maps magic happen. And we worked with a freelance graphic designer as well, who helped us with some of the graphic design for the site.
So it's like a casual game team, like.
It's like I mean, the setup that we have at the company is we have a core team of 8 staff, and the way that splits down is that's 3 software developers, 3 creatives. There's myself doing business development and some creative, and Lisa, who's our COO.
And when did you start?
We founded the company in September 2007.